Colin Meurk for the, now I'm not sure whether it's Waitakere or Waitakere, because the school is pronounced differently here than it is pronounced in Auckland. So, I mean, sorry, the subdivision's pronounced...
Meurk, it is.
Eh?
It's supposed to be Meurk.
No, she's talking about Waitakere.
Oh, Waitakere, yes.
Waitakere or Waitakere?
Yeah. I'm going Waitakere at the moment, but
okay.
It's all right. Open to...
The school's Waitakere, so...
to further discussion.
Unfortunately, they didn't tell me that before I opened it, so I I mispronounced it. The minister wasn't able to turn up, so I got roped in at the last minute.
This is just my presentation. So, thank you again. So this is two presentations wrapped in one. It's my annual inspirational ecological message to the council. I don't know how closely it relates to the annual plan per se, but I'm kind of thinking a little bit beyond just 1 year, as usual. So I want to start by just suggesting that I'm talking here about a 360-degree view of the city and through 1,000 vertical metres from harbour beds to the crest of Mount Herbert, all steeped in layered history. And we've just heard a little bit about the tangata whenua history. And so this is really about a five-dimensional city of space, time and people. And that's kind of my driving kind of message, I suppose. And of course that is encapsulated in the 360 trail, you know, the symbolism associated with that. It represents all of those different layers. I want to promote a vision of a truly diverse and joined-up city that can act as a beacon of good practice, beauty, richness, inclusiveness and enlightenment, not only to ourselves but to the world. We're all hearing more and more about the climate crisis that's enveloping us, but we're heading for a perfect storm of crises: biodiversity, water, public health, population, and all the sort of tensions associated with that and resource limitations. All are related and fundamentally ecological in nature and solution. You do have some great ecological staff in the City Council, but it often seems they are siloed and too far below the governance levels to take preventative, creative and opportunistic actions. I'm sure you'll challenge that. How is it that despite the 30-year-old concept and acceptance of quadruple bottom line paradigm, that governing bodies are generally devoid of ecological expertise? And I note that ECAN is a notable exception. It's got 2 councillors who are ecologists. But generally they're missing from the top table. And before you all say, oh, we all know about the environment, can we apply the same argument to business, social, cultural and engineering representation? We all know about those too, don't we? And yet we always make sure we've got that represented at the top tables. I wish to just touch on 2 of the featured crises that I personally know something about. Well, I probably know lots of crises when I come to think of it. Biodiversity and the eco-social cultural balance as an illustration of the connectedness that I'm promoting here. I've just got a slide showing a connected space which was representing the idea of a pocket park that was a display at the Ellerslie Flower Show in 2012, in which we incorporated all the sort of normal urban environments in a small space, but completely represented with indigenous species, just to show the diversity and the fact that you can have a city that is completely embedded in its unique natural heritage. Well, we've just proven our city to be biodiverse. In the last 4 days, unbeknownst to perhaps some of you, we have been participating in a global city nature challenge. And in that time, and this is just the beginning statistics, they'll accumulate over the next week, over those 4 days, over 300 people in the city have made 12,000 observations of over 2,000 species within the city. When corrected for population and area, we expect to be near the top of the world leaderboard in biodiversity and engagement. So watch this space, and thanks to Laura Moles and the comms team here for promoting this from the city. Biodiversity is a valuable resource intrinsically for human well-being and ecological literacy, and for marketing our city through, for example, the Christchurch 360 Trail, which was supposed to be an innovative and cheap enterprise that would breathe life in all sorts of ways into the city, and yet we seem to still lack a can-do attitude. The next slide shows of a spatial representation of an integrated ecology in our cultural landscapes, with patches, corridors, and the intervening matrix, which is where we all live, and we can have accessibility to nature. So resource inventory, holistic interpretation of biological, environmental and public opinion survey data, crisis alerts, rapid reaction, planning, design, maintenance, branding and marketing all need a more integrated ecological input. Staff need better support from within and from knowledgeable members of the public. The Christchurch Biodiversity Partnership was supposed to provide that. It still hasn't been formalised after several years of dithering. There isn't time here to detail the role such a partnership would perform. We naively assumed it would be a no-brainer and would just happen. Specifically, Canterbury is the big hole in the endangered charismatic wildlife experience. We're the only region in New Zealand without this eco-sanctuary type transformational asset for its not only its intrinsic conservation importance, but as a springboard for both ecological and sociological halo effects. Witness Zealandia spawning kaka and saddlebacks across the city, but consequently the predator-free Wellington movement. The proposed Waitakere Eco Sanctuary, illustrated here, around Travers in the red zone, same area as Zealandia, would potentially have the same halo effects and add value to the Christchurch portfolio. It has routinely been the most popular of the big-ticket propositions for the red zone, and it is the least expensive option that's been put forward. But it's been the most frequently ignored by the prevailing authorities, Regenerate Christchurch, Sierra, and so on. But it fits into the landscape model I showed earlier for achieving a landscape with ecological integrity, connectivity, legibility, that is visibility, reducing nature deficit disorder while raising ecological literacy. This is a prerequisite for addressing many of the crises the planet is facing and for surviving on our spaceship Earth. And furthermore, this connectivity could be represented in a symbol of our treaty, the strength of the treaty between strands of English heritage and Indigenous and Tangata Whenua heritage, criss-crossing its way along the river corridor. Another idea that was proposed and put up and accepted, in fact, by Sierra as it was in the first of the anchor projects for the city, but then dropped because of incorrect hydrological information. You can see it there. Finally, and I say with some sadness, in the light of the recent horror attack on our city, I wish to draw your attention to a concept I proposed 10 years ago in anticipation of the real world visiting us here in our Sleepy Hollow. We can no longer take for granted our security, and that saying that resonates here is, for evil to triumph, it only takes good people to do nothing. I can be sure that unless we do something, we will slip back into complacency. This notion has been tested with a range of communities, many different presentations, groups, societies, ethnic and religious representatives, over the last decade. And I see it as a way of creating an enduring message to remind ourselves to be vigilant always, but also to reach out to the world with a message of inclusiveness, kindness, which our national leader has been promoting, knowledge, enlightenment, wisdom, and hope about how to co-create solutions to the many wicked problems facing us. We can and should be a beacon to the world, not just some backwater and transit stop to Queenstown, as we've become. I call this concept embracing a landscape of love, life, and light, an elevated plain table in the central city showing a 360-degree panorama of the rich cultural, ethnic, and natural icons or taonga of our city, symbolising togetherness, kindness, nature, people, and awareness, linked to a more proactive collaboration of the many centres of higher learning in the region to tackle holistically the national and global crises and tensions we face. This should be our beacon. I have an ambition for this city. I'm personally committed to making it happen. I hope you have too, and propose some wider think tank, some forum, like we saw and share an idea, but a true cultural partnership that embraces all the diverse wisdoms in our fair city, and particularly ecology, I guess, to discuss how to progress the city's potential and aspirations way beyond its current business-as-usual ambitions. We must be bold, lift our sights. Now is the time. You know, there's no other time. So I commend the city to get with the program, to make the biodiversity partnership happen this year, the 360 trail this year, the Waitakere Eco Sanctuary on the radar for the city's future after the baton's passed on from Regenerate Christchurch. And don't miss another moment to raise our dear city above the parapet of complacency and business as usual, and follow our other past great leaders, you know, Kate Shepherd, the Britons, Bic Ronga, you know, Riwi Ali. I mean, you know, there's a whole list of people that our city is founded on, and yet we often fail to remember the great foundation that they created. And importantly, also fiscally responsible. Many of the things that I have promoted were designed to be as cheap as chips, really. They were designed not to be putting pressure on the city's economy. We all know the city is facing an uphill battle financially, but the city, the city offices and the system, the bureaucracy, seems to be hell-bent on putting as many obstacles as possible, inconsistently, and without proper logic being applied. I mean, there's an internal logic, but it doesn't face up to external scrutiny. We should be keeping ourselves on the international map. And I was going to say claiming our second city status, but no, I'm going to say claiming our first city status in New Zealand, and being a leader in the world that has been bestowed on us by the New York Times and so on. You know, they put us on there after the earthquakes, but are we living up to that? Having this wider conversation. You know, that Red Zone recovery big meeting at the University of Canterbury last year, there was no ecological input into that discussion. A whole day of wonderful speeches, but there was no ecological input. It's because we all know about the environment, don't we? Okay? So that's my message and challenge. I hope it is seen as being woven into each of our annual plans, year by year, and that we see some progress with some of these initiatives, because there's a lot of people out there expecting and hoping for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin. I always find your thinking great, you know, to listen to. So I really appreciate the effort that you put in there. Yeah, there's a lot in it. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Colin. I certainly agree with Leanne, and thank you for all your expertise that you bring us, Colin, and I enjoy the discussions we have about these sort of things. And I just wondered, like, I guess for us in governance too, besides your other suggestions, Colin, that in fact we as elected members are not necessarily specialists, especially in the area of biodiversity. That if in a way there might be your suggestion about having a think tank that actually includes that whole aspect, including water and the environment, if in fact given climate change and the crisis we're on, if in fact it might be timely to actually have some kind of think tank which in fact would be available for mentoring generalist members like myself.
Yes, well, the Biodiversity Partnership was intended to do that, at least within the framework of biodiversity and conservation. But as you can see, all of these things are interlinked, and it's really about just having an ecological lens in all of these discussions, in my view, about the future of the city. It's an important pillar of sustainability. You know, it was all said 30 years ago, but never really taken fully on board. I mean, we all think we're doing good for the environment and we're taking that into consideration, but that's the point, where often our governance structures are second-guessing what that particular pillar knows and understands, and often missing risks, but also missing opportunities.
I'm afraid we've come to the end of the time allocated, so thank you, Colin. We're grateful for you.
Thank you.